Right, it's time once again to chat some horror. This is the Ministry of Horror, your weekly dose of horror news, reviews, and sometimes a discussion or two, depending on how lazy I am. I'm your host Tezz, and let's just kind of get into what we are discussing on today's show. So shortly, we'll crack into some horror news, discuss the latest goings on in the world of horror. Not really any video game news this time, but quite a few bits of film and TV to discuss. We then have some reviews. So first up on the reviews is going to be the R.I.P. Man. I have to just straight away apologise to the filmmakers because they did send me a screener for this last year, just as I was going out to America for my wedding, and then my honeymoon on the road, and then it was Christmas before we knew it, and then New Year's, and we were away for New Year's, and a lot of excuses right there, but better late than never. So I had a screener for the R.I.P. Man. I'll have a review of that a bit later on. I also checked out The Ruse, which is on Prime, one of the newish Prime releases, although the film came out in 2024. And then a belated review. Me and the wife did go to see Anaconda. Originally, we were going to record an Anaconda review ourselves, like together, but it was just, again, time just gets away from us. So I kind of figured, while the film is still fresh, let's get a review in for that. And then we do have a featured presentation. So, as I sort of say on here, the TikTok seems to be blowing up, which is, it really is. I mean, obviously I'm under no illusions. I know in the grand scheme of things, the numbers aren't astronomical, but it's grown massively in 2025 from where it had been for a little while. And one of the things that I have done, which is fairly successful on there, is essentially slideshows, recommendations, top 3 films that are underrated from the 80s, atmospheric horrors, put you on the edge of your seat. And one that I had done just last week was a couple of recommendations for disturbing horror finales. And that has blown up. Like, at time of recording, it's at like 40,000 views, which for me is huge. It's over double the highest ranking video that I've had on the channel, and that's a video that's been on there for months. This has done it in a week. So we're going to talk about some of those scenes, and there's also been a few DMs and Discord messages that people have put forward, so we are going to talk about those as well. So thank you very much for anyone who has put forward their views on a memorable horror finale that disturbed them in some way or another. We'll get to that later on. You will get shout outs. Of course, talking of shout outs, we have to give shout outs to the Ministry of Horror Patreons. In the right tier, we have Gruff. You get your name shout out for the week. Thank you, dude. We also have other levels, so be sure to check out patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. There's going to be a bonus rant this week. I'm hopefully recording it today. We'll see how time goes, but if not, I'm going to be recording it tomorrow. A little Patreon exclusive, unfiltered rant of horror hot takes from yours truly. You may hate them. I don't even fully know exactly what things I'm going to censor myself on, but hey, that's what we do over there. So yeah, of course, this is my shout out for the socials. Be sure to search for Ministry of Horror on all of them. Give it a follow. Like, share, subscribe, YouTube, let's keep growing on the YouTube as well. Thank you very much. So let's jump into the horror news. Straight off the bat, horror news is from bloodydisgusting.com. Megan Navarro writes, Scream 7 exclusive clip carves into franchise's killer 30-year legacy. The Scream franchise turns 30 this year, and its killer legacy comes full circle in Scream 7. Their exclusive TV spot celebrates the franchise's enduring legacy and how everything has led to this, the 7th installment of the slasher sequel created by original director Wes Craven and writer Kevin Williamson. The clip is online and it rewinds to 1996 to chronicle Sidney Prescott's enduring battle with Ghostface, one that brings her daughter into the mix in the upcoming sequel. Even the Scream logo gets the legacy treatment, highlighting its transformation over the years between films. Paramount's Scream 7 will be slashing its way into theatres on February 27th, 2026. I am hyped for this one. I know that there's been a lot of negativity over the behind the scenes stuff, but I'm interested to see how they do with this, to be honest. There's a lot of returning characters. I didn't even notice she'll be returned by returning players including David Arquette. I did not know David Arquette was back in what must be some sort of dream sequence or a flashback sequence, because He did. Matthew Lillard, we don't know his role, how his character's going to appear in this exactly, but the trailer does show a scene at a insane asylum or a mental facility of someone who's been obsessing over her for years, and whether that is a red herring to make you think, oh, it's him, or not, don't know. But it's got me interested. I'm along for the ride. I'm happy to see where this goes. So yeah, February 27th we have Scream and Scream 7. I'm pretty sure it's around that date as well that we're getting Resident Evil Requiem. Horror fans, we are eating well at the moment. Speaking of that, gaming news for me, I finally finished Alan Wake 2. Now, I am aware that to get the true ending, I would have to play New Game Plus. Anyone that knows me knows that when I finish a game, or when I finish a game's story, just to, be correct before anyone corrects me, correct myself, I should say. When I finish the story, that's me done with the game for the most part. If there's good expansions or I'm invested, like The Witcher 3, I will play the expansions, but I very, very rarely will replay a game. And I know that, there's different endings if you do different stuff. Yeah, but it's such a time commitment. Like, it's taken me almost or just over 2 years, whenever it was that Alan Wake 2 came out. I think I got it a couple of months after it came out. It's taken me that length of time to finish it. So I'm not playing it again. But a friend of mine, pal of the channel, Tom, did tell me what the true ending was, and it sounds pretty good. Good enough for me to replay the game? No. I'm just glad that I know what it is. But anyway, we've got Resident Evil Requiem coming out. We also, of course, have Scream 7. So I'm up for this. Kevin Williamson directing, who's previously written the first 2 or 3, or part of 3. He's definitely written the first 2. And Guy Busick, who wrote Scream 2022, or Scream 5, unofficially as it's called, and Scream 6 with Williamson. So there should be enough there to keep the intrigue. I mean, obviously, if you want to take a stand on those issues and therefore don't want to watch it, that's entirely your choice and that's your prerogative, and more power to you. But if you are interested in the Scream series, this is looking pretty exciting. TV news: Maya Hawke and Lewis Pullman embrace in supernatural rom-com wishful thinking still. Alex DiVincenzo writes, fresh off the conclusion of Stranger Things, Maya Hawke can next be seen in wishful thinking. She says she shares an embrace with co-star Lewis Pullman in the first image from the science fiction rom-com. In the film, when a volatile couple discovers their emotional state has supernatural consequences on the world around them, they must decide whether to fight for their relationship or accept that their powerful connection might be doing more harm than good. Writer-director Graham Parks makes his feature debut on the project, which is set to premiere at South by Southwest in Austin, Texas next month. Randall Park, TikTok influencer Jake Shane, Kate Berlant, Amita Rao, and Eric Rahill round out the cast. Doctor Who favourite Matt Smith produces alongside Pullman, Cara Durrett, and Dan Gedman. Yeah, I mean, I don't really watch rom-coms. If the wife is interested in watching it, I will watch it with her, of course. Good husband. And speaking of Lewis Pullman, I've recently started rewatching the 2025, I think it must have been, Salem's Lot, the kind of the HBO Max new adaptation. It does seem better than I remember, because I've on my shelves behind me, I picked up a little while ago the Blu-ray release, standard Blu-ray release, which annoyingly, about a month after picking that up, Arrow have announced they've got a 4K release coming of it. So, in line with my collector challenge for the year, if I am to buy that, I have to buy it within the collection budget, and I have to get rid of the original copy. So that's fine. The original copy's still sealed, so that should be easy. But I digress. I went on to Prime Video, and I picked up digitally Return to Salem's Lot, which I saw years ago on TV. It is terrible. It's actually much worse than I remember. I remember it being schlocky fun, and there's always been like a bit of a curiosity to rewatch it because it's not that readily available. There's a reason why. And I also picked up, because there doesn't seem to be a physical release of Salem's Lot, the HBO one. And I just remember thinking it was a bit soulless, a bit bland in the cinema. Like, it's fine. It wasn't bad. It was just a bit of a nothing burger. Yeah, it's a bit more entertaining actually watching it again on home. I only watched about the first half an hour or so the other night, and yeah, okay, there you go. So if you were like me and thought, bit naff, give it another go. I mean, my opinion might change as the film continues, but seems all right. Anyway, there you go, rom-com. Next up, cursed toilets become killer creatures in bowels of hell. Alex DiVincenzo writes, toilets will scare the crap out of you in the Brazilian horror film Bowels of Hell. Variety reports that Bluefinch Films has picked up international sales rights to ahead of the film's world premiere at the International Film Festival Rotterdam in the Netherlands later this month. Martha Nowell stars as Malu, who struggles with unresolved trauma and a difficult child take a nightmarish turn when an inexplicable curse brings toilets to life as murderous creatures, plunging her into a bizarre realm where maternal responsibilities, loss, and existential dread intertwine. Gustavo Vinagre and Garcius Gudner co-write and co-direct. Otavia Mueller, Chatelet Braz, Marco Pigosi of Bone Lake, which I've heard decent things on Bone Lake, and it is on offer at the moment. I think the next film that I'm going to rent is either going to be Bone Lake, because it's on offer, or Coyotes, which is a new horror comedy with Justin Long and Kate Bosworth. I was going to say his wife, but that's incredibly derogatory. She's a star in her own right. Anyway, Regina Braga, Olivia Torres, Mary Gladys, and cult filmmaker Bruce LaBruce, who did Otto and Or Up with Dead People. Okay, there we go. Have I watched much Brazilian horror? I don't think I have. I mean, I've seen a few Argentinian horrors, When Evil Lurks and Terrified by the same director. Very, very good, very disturbingly terrifying. But Brazilian horror, I don't really think I've seen that much of. I think one of my little mini goals for the year, other than the horror collection, but within a budget and building the collection, but at the same point keeping it contained and not spending silly money, is going to be to try to start getting back into watching more world cinema. I need to do that because I did used to really enjoy watching like J horror, K horror, French new wave, extreme horror, things like that. So let's try some Brazilian horror. Why not? And finally, in the horror news, Digimon Hounds. I can never pronounce his name. I'm so bad. Sorry. Digimon Hunso performed surgery on Lauren Levera in Darren Lynn Boozman's Twisted trailer. Alex DiVincenzo writes, Digimon Hunso swore an oath to do no harm. I'm butchering that. I'm so, I'm pretty certain that's not how it's pronounced. But he's willing to make an exception for Lauren Levera in Twisted. The gory horror thriller will be released on digital February 6th via Republic Pictures. Trailer is available now. Darren Lynn Bousman, who did Saw 2 to 4, Spiral also, directs from a script by Jonathan Bernstein and James Greer. Levera stars as a millennial who makes quick money by leasing incredible New York City apartments she doesn't own to people who don't know they are being swindled. The con artist's real estate scam unravels into a nightmare when she's captured by a surgeon who has a terrifying plan. Maya Healy, Gina Phillips, Jacob Lucas Anderson, Neil McDonough, and Alicia Witt round out the cast. Saw franchise vet Mark Berg produces via Twisted Pictures with Envision Media Arts, Lee Nelson and David Tisch. So, I mean, that's a pretty good cast. Darren Lynn Bousman, I know he's done other stuff other than the Saw films, but I've only, to my knowledge, seen his directing work on the Saw films, and that's decent. I would have written him off a while ago, many, many years ago, I would have said, prior to doing the Ministry of Horror rewatch, start to finish of the Saw series. It gave me a greater appreciation for the Saw sequels, I must say. So, interested from that respect. The plot sounds pretty interesting. Lauren Levera is awesome. And the great actor whose name I keep butchering, so I don't want to keep saying it, is excellent. He's a really good actor. So, yeah, that's definitely going to have to go onto my keep an eye out for list. So, let's jump into the horror films now that we are going to review, of course. We're always talking horror films, of course. The R.I.P. Man. So, with all of these horror reviews, what we do on the Ministry of Horror is I will talk a little bit about the plot, I'll go into the highs, the lows, and I will give it a score out of 10. So first off, I have to give a shout out to it's either Jamie Langlands himself, who also did The Cellar, which we got a screener for as well. So big shout out to you, Jamie Langlands. It's either him or the other writer, Rhys Thompson, or
This is a robot.
Can Alexa. It's either them or a social media individual who has cottoned on to the Ministry of Horror on Instagram and liked the stuff, and has reached out with requests for me to review their films. So always happy to do that. If people don't know, just to give a little bit of a background, I used to be an owner or co-owner, driving force might I say, of Vipco. Not the original iteration, Vipco films, doing like Cannibal Holocaust releases in like the 80s and early 2000s. I was far too young, or even not born at those stages. But it sort of came back to an extent, and we got the opportunity, me and a couple of colleagues, to purchase it, which we did. Yeah, me and especially filmmaker Peter Goddard were sort of the driving force of trying to do a real sort of grassroots effort to revitalize the Vipco brand, which we managed to sell to North America. So success. But I part of that was involved in the sales side of things. So signing up new films to get physical releases of their films, and also championed and ran the Vipco Vaults of Terror first and only online film festival. So the long and short of it is, filmmakers, if you want to just reach out directly and say, could you review my film? Of course. Send me the details, send me a screener, we'll get into it. So, let's get into the plot. A serial killer with a rare oral condition begins to target young adults and removes a single tooth from each victim. Can a family's kept secret unfold the truth and help prevent the murders from continuing? So, as I mentioned, directed by Jamie Langlands, also wrote it along with Rhys Thompson, stars Owen Lewell, Maximus Poling, and Jasmine Keene. So, this is a slasher film. To get into it, it's a slasher film with a decent amount of gore, and we have a potential new on-screen, I'm not going to say obviously in the same vein of Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees, but Alden Pick is our antagonist in this, the R.I.P. man, rest in pain man, and it's a pretty effective character, to be fair. The appearances we have of him, he just has this menacing look. I don't know how tall the actor is, but he looks like he's almost 7 foot in a number of the scenes where he appears. His appearances do certainly look like kind of potential for nightmare fuel. The acting in this is pretty decent, and what I should say is I don't know what the budget for this film was, but production-wise, it does look decent. It is shot well. You've got a good variety of locations. They have a police station. They have a college campus, bars and whatnot. You've got a good amount of variety to keep things interesting. The setup for the kills themselves are pretty decent. The policeman acting, actually, I probably would say is not actually that great. And the reason why I then went off on the tangent a moment ago about Vipco is because not just because of the independent filmmaking, but it did remind me of some of the work on Harvest of the Dead Halloween Night, film I co-wrote and co-directed, and Devil in the Woods, which is a film I made, where the police scenes, some of the dialogue is a bit by the numbers, but I don't mark that down too much because I can tell this is an independent production, but it has done incredibly well with whatever budget they had available. I think it does lull a little bit, I would say, when we kind of get to around, I suppose, the hour mark. We've had a good build-up of the slasher kills, this guy who quite gorily murders different people in a variety of ways before then using a drill to extract one of their teeth. That's kind of his hallmark. It's when we start getting into the investigation, or the focus on the investigation, and finding out his backstory, that the backstory itself is quite interesting. The twists and turns that the plot does take are quite interesting. But I do feel it does lull a little bit there, to be fair. there's a nice, although I didn't have to Google it because I didn't really quite understand it, which I think is, it's good because it meant that I cared. That the very end or the final frame of the film, I was a little bit confused. But what I should say is, if I was confused but I didn't enjoy the film, I'd have just gone, what was that about? But because I was like, well, wait a minute, have I missed something here? What's occurring here? I Googled it, I looked up some theories, and the fact that there's discussions on theories, it had me interested to see, okay, well, what can happen next? Could this be the start of a new franchise? Potentially. And I wouldn't mind seeing what the R.I.P. Man 2 looked like. I got to give props to the guys, as I say. They've done well with whatever resources they had available, and I generally enjoyed it. I think I'm just going to have to knock it down slightly because, as I mentioned, lulls a little bit as we get into the second half of the film. There's also an extended bar scene, which with this band playing, which it kind of turned into a little bit of a music video just because it was like the full song of the band and a lot of focus on that scene was on the band. It just felt a little bit like not for me. I'm going to give the R.I.P. Man a 6 out of 10. Check it out. I think you can. Yeah, it's available to rent and buy currently now on Amazon Prime. I don't know if it's available on any streamers for free, but check it out. You can rent it now on Prime for $3.99. We're going to move on now to The Ruse. The Ruse I saw on Prime yesterday, I think. It's written and directed by Stefan Mina, starring Veronica Cartwright of Alien and Simpsons fame, Madeline Dundon, and Michael Steger. An in-home caregiver fears for her life after being assigned... Oh, I've already clicked on something. After being assigned to a mysterious elderly patient in a remote seaside town. Okay, so... bit of a twisty-turny thriller on this one. It opens up with a different caregiver working for Veronica Cartwright's character, whose name is Olivia. Olivia is an elderly lady who was a composer, widowed, and needs round the clock care. Essentially, she's getting on a bit. And at the start of the film, her previous caregiver is off screen, brutally attacked. As far as we can tell, she's disappeared, which then leads to Madeline Dundon's Dale being hired to come in as the new carer. Due to staffing issues with the agency, she should be on shift work, but no one is able for at least a week or so to come and swap shifts with her. So she's kind of there for a prolonged period of time. This affects her relationship. Also, there's a bit of a backstory there as to why she really needs this job. There had been an incident in the past that has really marked her career negatively. She meets Tom, played by Michael Steger, who's a neighbour who's got a daughter who believes that Olivia's home is haunted, that there's a ghost there. But all is not as it seems. Now, the title of the film, The Ruse, without trying to go into spoilers, if you think of what the ruse means, it could be, it's essentially like things are being set up in a certain way. All is not as it seems. Certain persons are playing a role and maybe aren't quite as innocent as they would look. Yeah, this is decent. It's a decent little thriller. At no point is it really kind of tense. The performances in it are very, very good, actually. I think Veronica Cartwright does very well. She's playing this character who appears to be struggling with her mental stability at times. I can't remember if it's confirmed she's maybe got Alzheimer's going on, something like that, or dementia. I'm not sure. May have missed the dialogue there. But the people around her all seem to be quite well-meaning, but are they actually? Dun-dun-dun. And then it leads into a final confrontation where accusations are made, assumptions are made, and things take different twists and turns. The finale of this, the reveal with the how it goes down, can't really go into it. I sort of thought was I thought the reveal was good. The execution maybe not so much. It sort of felt a bit like an episode of like a procedural rather than a film. But it didn't really necessarily affect my enjoyment. I was certainly wondering if there's something supernatural going on. I had little elements, I suppose, of giallo, except without the gore. It's not gory at all. But in the whodunit aspect and the POV shots holding a knife, it happened a couple of times. Yeah, it's entertaining enough. Score is decent. Fine, it's a fine film. I'm going to give it 6 out of 10. I know, same as the last film, but 6 out of 10. And then we're going to move on to my Anaconda Don't Want None Unless You Got Buns Hun, starring Paul Rudd, Jack Black, Steve Zahn, Thandie Newton, and Selton Mello. We're going to talk about Anaconda 2025. So this... Horror is a term used lightly on this. I will just preface, but it's a film we have discussed on the horror news quite a bit in 2025. It's a 2025 American action adventure comedy horror film that serves as a meta reboot of Anaconda from 1997, and is the 6th installment in the Anaconda film series. The film is directed by Tom Gormican, who co-wrote it with Kevin Etten, and stars Paul Rudd, Jack Black, Steve Zahn, Thandie Newton, Daniela Melchior, and Selton Mello. So, childhood friends Doug McAllister, Ronald Griffin, Kenny Trent, and Claire Simmons are all dissatisfied with the way their lives have gone. When Griff, a television actor struggling to find work, reveals that he has obtained the rights to one of their favourite films, Anaconda, the group secures a loan and travels to the Amazon rainforest in Brazil to make a low-budget indie version of the film. The group are joined by Anna, a woman who claims to be going after illegal gold miners. While shooting, Griff accidentally kills the snake they are meant to use. So, this is a film. It's a meta film because in this film, the original Anaconda film exists and was a film that they watched as kids and absolutely loved. So, it's not a sequel as such, it's not a remake as such, but it is a meta requel, I guess, to a degree. This is very much a comedy action film, a comedy adventure film, I should actually say. And you know what? It was a lot of fun. About halfway through this, I was sort of thinking, you know what? I love Jack Black, I love Paul Rudd. Like, they can really do no wrong in my eyes. I don't think either of them, to memory, have done a stinker, a film that I've particularly watched and gone, well, that was terrible, you know. I mean, they've done a few forgettable films. Jack Black did that film about this spray that makes poo not stink, something like that. That was pretty forgettable. And I haven't seen Minecraft because I've got absolutely no interest. But on the whole, you know, they're just charming actors. They're just lovable, charming actors. And Steve Zahn's always good entertainment as well. So about half an hour into this, I was thinking, this is fun, but it's not either of their best works. You know, there's no particular joke that I was like, oh my God, my sides are bursting. But it is a film that builds up in its humour. Once we get into the second half and the snake attack is running rampant, it's just so damn entertaining. They both have great character roles in this. Performances are really, really good. It goes to places that neither of us expected it to, with certain plot points in the late, you know, last like 20 minutes or so of the film. Really nice surprises there. As I say, it's light on the horror because it isn't really gory. Some of the snake attacks, you sort of half think, are they going to show it like squeezing someone to death because there was a mention of that, or swallowing someone whole? And it is very much snake launching itself from off screen, taking a character out, and then that's the character essentially gone. So you know, it's very much horror in terms of you could watch this with the family. Really, you know, it's in that way, I would say. But comedy at the cinema is something that just doesn't happen that much these days. It really doesn't. So if you have the opportunity, if you like Jack Black or Paul Rudd, if you like the original Anaconda, I would just say go and watch it. Because there is something about going to the cinema and having a laugh that just, as I say, we're not in the era anymore of like a Step Brothers or Anchorman or, you know, like a I Love You Man sort of film arriving at the cinema. They kind of just, those sort of films go straight to streamers because the big cinema companies would rather put out like a sequel or a franchise. And this kind of falls under there to a degree, I guess. But it's definitely entertaining. It's definitely one that I would like to watch again. I think we both thoroughly enjoyed watching this. I'm gonna give Anaconda 7.5 out of 10. As I say, it's not either of their best works. The effects are decent. It is light on the horror, so it's worth mentioning on the show. But 7.5 out of 10 for Anaconda. Let's now move on to our featured presentation, but there's no special images if you're watching the YouTube. But we'll play the music. We'll play the music. Okay, so I'm getting messages about dinner, so we'll keep it lean. So, as mentioned, we discussed on the start of the show that one of the TikToks that I've done recently, which was a slideshow TikTok. I don't do miming things or dancing things on there. Well, there was one which was the guy from Mad Men, that viral thing that was going around. So I jumped on that bandwagon. I'll be honest. But no, it's what I'd done is do these little kind of image slideshows, recommendations, and this one popped off massively. So, disturbing horror finales. The ones that I'd mentioned were, in particular, I'll just load it up on my phone because I can't fully remember. Oh, there we go. Turn that down. Speak No Evil, the original. So, what I should probably say is full spoilers from this point onwards. If any of these films that I'm going to discuss, you hear me mention the title and you think, oh crap, I've not seen that, I'd like to watch that, maybe pause the podcast, come back to it, finish the podcast, but maybe pause it and then and then revisit it. But Speak No Evil, the original Dutch-Danish co-production. General plot is these two families meet on holiday. One invites the very meek and mild family to stay at their country house for a sort of family get-together holiday. Things aren't as they seem. They start realizing that the hosting family are a little bit brash, a little bit rude. They're quite mean to their son, quote unquote. And then as the story is progressing, you're there's a tension because you basically just want this family to get out. You as a viewer know that something isn't right here, but they're just too damn polite. Anyway, they end up essentially kidnapping the daughter of the good family, cutting her tongue out, as what is proved to have happened to the boy that we thought was their son, who they've drowned. And then they take the parents to this rock quarry, which had been visited earlier on the film, make them strip naked and stone them to death. And when it's said, like, well, why are you doing this? Because you let us. It's basically saying you're in this situation, it's kind of your own fault because you're too polite, is the crux of it. And they're not the only people that they've done this to. This has been ongoing, this kind of almost ritual of taking a family in on the preface of being friends and then taking their child and moving on to the next one. I also mentioned Eden Lake, which someone in the comments has said that they don't really think Eden Lake's a thriller because there's no slasher, there's no supernatural entity or monster. But those aren't the only criteria for it to be a horror film. Obviously, that's down to thoughts and interpretation and preference and whatever. Everyone's opinion. Opinion is the word I'm looking for. But no, horror does not, in my opinion, need to contain a monster or be a slasher or be supernatural to be a horror film. Doesn't matter that it's just chavs at a lake. The horror is on a personal level and the dread that they're encountering. Anyway, a couple go to this lake getaway. They encounter these chavs chavs feel wronged, and situations escalate from there, which then lead to them sort of being hunted through the woods. Kelly Riley's character, her husband or fiance, Michael Fassbender, has been killed by the gang. She eventually gets a bit of revenge, running over one of the group and I can't remember too much because it is very much a one-watch film for me. I've seen it the one time. I've just, it's great, but I've never been in the mindset to actually rewatch it. Anyway, she thinks she has escaped. She ends up at this house where she's asking them to help her, like call the police on, help, help, help. And initially, it's seeming like she's going to get help before realizing that this is this house is the parents of one of the kids that's been hunting them. And when the parents realize this, she tries to barricade herself in the bathroom. They kick the door in, and the camera pans away. It focuses back on the kid, whatever his name is, Jack O'Connell, who played Cook in Skins, who's in his room deleting footage from his phone while he can hear screams from the bathroom. So you don't know her fate, but it can't be good. And it's one of those films where it's just disturbing because you think she's gone through so much, she's almost gotten away, she's almost got some salvation, and then it's just led to something probably far worse than what would have happened in the woods. And it's that not knowing, which is just brutal. And then the other one that I mentioned on the TikTok was Don't Look Now, Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie. It's a classic British mystery horror film, and actually probably one of the first 4Ks I ever purchased. This vintage classics box set. Lovely set. It's definitely going to be a future off the shelf episode. But 1973, I believe, early 70s film. He's an architect, and at the start of the film, their daughter unfortunately drowns in their lake. And fast forward slightly, they're grieving. They're in Italy doing a restoration at a church, and he believes that he keeps seeing his daughter running around the town, like her ghost or something, because he keeps seeing a person in a rain slicker running around. At the same time this is happening, there are murders. Women are getting murdered around Venice. It turns out what he's been seeing is a premonition. He's essentially at one point also seen his own funeral. He realizes it's only too late. There's other things going on and whatnot, but once he spots the short person in the red cloak running around the streets, and he follows them and actually manages to corner them in this abandoned. It's not a chapel. It's almost like a catacomb, but I can't remember the correct term. Really creepy looking location, and he thinks that they're crying, but as he approaches closer saying, "No, come on, it's okay," and they turn around and they're not actually crying, they're just wheezing, and it's a really horrible breathing sound and sort of almost laughing. It's this little old lady dwarf who pulls out a meat cleaver, and before he can even really react, she hits him across the neck, killing him, and he has essentially pursued his own death. Really, it's one of those moments where you're just drawn into this film thinking, oh God, what was actually occurring? Is there any connection? And that reveal is terrifying. I mean, you could look at it through today's lens and go, oh, it's a film from the 70s, how can it be terrifying? But if you actually watch it as a film as opposed to expecting a slasher, expecting, gore and everything, it really draws you in. And it's a shocking finale, disturbing even. The other ones that we've had on the Discord, so Fran the Cannon, we often joins the live chats when we do the live shows. Fran has responded to the message saying Society, the shunting. So Society is in the late 80s or very early 90s. I think it's a Brian Usner film. And it's a bit of a mystery film. This lad believes that something odd is going on. People are going missing. There seems to be this weird mystery going on with the high society, and part of his family's high society. And he's looking into this mystery. He's doing his own sort of investigation. But at the same time, there are certain things going on in the background that you think, well, that doesn't look right. Someone's in the shower, and you can sort of see their naked body in the frosted glass of the shower screen. And then there's a head where their arse should be, or things like that. Body parts are appearing in places where they shouldn't be. It all leads up to the revelation that all these individuals of high society are actually kind of part of this particular race, like an alien race, essentially. And they take part in this event called the shunting, which is essentially this big body horror gangbang, metamorphosizing gangbang, where their bodies all meld and goop together and they're all like in throes of ecstasy. They take certain people and take apart their body through this. There's a particular moment where they shove their hand into someone, horrible. That same hand then comes up that person's face, pops their eyes out of their face. Thumb, I think, comes out the mouth. So the eyes are gone, fingers are coming through the eyes, and then it pulls the head inside of itself. It's the sort of thing that just, if you've never seen it before, which why would you? You're just thinking, what the hell is going on here? And it's the kind of moments that just, you almost forget about the rest of the film because of what's happened in that final 15 minutes. It's a baffling film. It's worth a watch, but it is baffling. And also, I've got to give a shout out here to the Macabre Mortis book club. So I think I liked a post of theirs on TikTok a little while ago. Got an invitation if I wanted to join the Discord. They have a Discord. It's a book club, but also horror promotion. Lots of discussions. Really, really cool community. So check out the Macabre Mortis book club on socials. If you like book talk, horror talk, all that stuff. So I popped on there a little blurb about that I'm just going to do a recording, and we've had a few comments. So Steph there said, think Midsummer for me, but purely because it's cathartic for the main character, Danny, and you can see in her smile at the end that she's finally at peace. Charlotte also seconded Midsummer. I loved it, but man, it left me feeling weird. Talked about the smile at the end from Florence being iconic. So yeah, Midsummer. My God, that's a powerful film. I remember seeing that in the cinema. The moment early on when you see what's happened to her family and she gets the phone call about it at the same point that her, bit of a knobhead boyfriend was about to break up with her, but he stays with her because he kind of feels guilty, and they go on this holiday, and it's really painfully awkward, the situation that they're in, and how he behaves as the film progresses. But they end up at this commune, and it is essentially a form of cult. And there's quite a few moments that you think, what the fuck? There's God, I'm terrible with names, but one person's been made into straw. Another person has been, you see this old couple basically as part of this old ritual, because they've reached a certain age, they just basically jump off a cliff, and lots of explosions of bodies. There's a blood eagle, which Google that. It's got quite a few moments, but we get to the end when we get to the fire and Florence Pugh being crowned as the I think it's like the Mayflower Queen or the Mayfair Queen. It's a trippy film, and that's a real moment where you sort of think like, can't really feel bad for her, because actually now she's almost found a place for her, even if it's a really messed up place. She's found a place. Charlie has mentioned Saint Maud as one of the best end scenes. The whole movie is unnerving, but that last sequence is fucking harrowing. I have seen Saint Maud. I do vaguely remember it. That is the woman who has this sort of she's on a bit of a religious crusade. Isn't she a carer or something along those lines? And then at the end it's a bit self-immolation, and it's just like, you're seeing things as she is seeing it for the majority of it, but then you're actually seeing that what is actually occurring is just a bit of a mind fuck. Saint Maud, I'd second. I'd also should mention, I don't think anyone's put it here, but Martyrs, brutal film, but that as it gets to the finale, it's just, oh, Jesus Christ. Tusk. Luke's Fright says Tusk. Also, I agree with Midsummer. Man, the amount of horrors I've watched as well, I've completely went blank. Tusk, Jesus. Tusk is one of the later weird Kevin Smith films starring Justin Long as a man who gets put into a human walrus suit and ends up having to fight as a walrus against a person who's also in a walrus suit, but Justin Long's been genetically, he's had his bones, his legs broken and made into actual tusks, and he ends up being kept alive, but in almost in a zoo, like absolutely it's a mind fuck. Charlotte agrees with Tusk. Thought that I dreamt that movie up because it's so bizarre. We got some also mentions for Midsummer. Also, why can't I see the name there? M says, I agree with Midsummer, but also Lake Mungo had me feeling all the feels, more sad than anything else. It definitely had some poo my pants moments. I do feel I need to give Lake Mungo a rewatch. That is one of those films where I went into it hearing all this hype, one of the best mockumentaries, one of the best found footage films, and it didn't hit with me. But then, similar to the first Hell House LLC, that had so much hype and love for it, and that one didn't hit for me. So yeah, Lake Mungo, I can't comment on too much. I can't remember a lot about it. I just remember not popping off with that. Luke's Fry also says, OMG, how did I forget The Mist? If you know, you know. So The Mist, based on the Stephen King short story, directed by Frank Darabont. Hopelessness at the end of it. Hopelessness leading to a moment where they have to make a decision with a gun and a number of bullets, but the bullets are outnumbered by the amount of people in the car. And the father of the film, played by Thomas Jane, opts to be the one to use the gun and then to go out to face these monsters, these Todash Dark creatures that have come through, only to then see that they are being fought back by the army, the military have come to save the day. And if they had waited 5 minutes longer, they'd have been saved. It's brutal. What else have we got? People talking about Tusk. Add to the list. Okay. Well, I think that's all the mentions there. So if there's anything that you've watched in ever, and it has left you just feeling like shell shock, like there's a gut punch, like all the air's gone out of your lungs from that final few moments of the film, let me know on socials. Ministry of Horror on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. That's where the podcast will go out, along with Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Be sure to follow. Give us a review, 5 stars if you like, or a fair review, just not too low, because let's not kill the channel. And be sure to check back on a weekly basis. As mentioned at the start of the show, Patreon, we're going to have some weekly exclusives going on there. We do have free memberships where you get blogs as well. So, let's try and build that up. If you haven't already, give it a free follow. Or if you want to support the channel, much appreciated. Anyway, that's all from me. Catch you later. Goodbye.